Hello everyone, welcome to Learn with AI. In today's video, I wanted to go over how to buy your first home in Canada. This is based on 2025 and this presentation was created by ChatGPT. And the content in this video is for educational and information purposes only. Always do your own research before making any financial decision. So here's some step-by-step guide that was provided by ChatGPT when it comes to buying a house in Canada. Uh, so here are some steps. First, you have to check your budget. Want to make sure that you don't have debt and you're in a comfortable place to buy a house. You want to make sure that you have enough money to put it down toward your down payment as well as paying for your mortgage. Then once you have a good budget, then you can get mortgage pre-approval. And also, this is just an overview of a high-level steps. So if you have further question, you can also do your own research. Once you have a mortgage pre-approved, then you can find a real estate agent who can find the house that you are interested in, and then there you go. You can start your house hunting. Once you find your house that's within your budget and uh, that fits your criteria, then you can make an offer and include conditions. And then it was described as an optional. This step number 6, you can do a home inspection to make sure that the house that you're buying is in a good condition. It's been maintained properly, and if not, you can include that in condition. And then you can finalize the mortgage approval, the one that you pre-approved beforehand, and then you can hire a real estate lawyer and then pay closing costs, and then you can move in. So, before buying a home, we also need to know what are the average home prices in Canada for major provinces and major cities. So you can see here, um, again, this is the data that was provided by ChatGPT, so you can take it with a grain of salt depending on which region within Vancouver or specific major cities we're looking at. But in Vancouver, housing cost averages around 1.5 million Canadian dollar, and then condo will be around 1 million. Which I think is quite expensive. And then the same goes for Toronto. It's just slightly lower than Vancouver. And then Ottawa, Calgary, Montreal, I guess compared to Vancouver and Toronto, it seems a lot more reasonable, where it sits around 500 to 800K. And then other provinces that weren't included above are going to be ranging from 300 to 600K. So let's suppose that you decided to buy a house in Vancouver, or actually, let's go with other provinces because that's the lowest, uh, that's the cheapest home price of all other provinces. Then, what's the down payment and mortgage requirement? So, again, when it comes to putting down your down payments, if your home price is under 500K, then based on ChatGPT, you have to put down at least a 5% down payment. So 5% of 500K, what does that amount to? Is it 25K based on if my math is correct? And then you have to pay 10% on portion above 500K up to $1 million. So I think what this means is if you're buying um, if you're buying $1 million home, then you have to pay at least, I don't know. Yeah, does that amount to 15%? I guess that could be a follow-up question to ChatGPT. But if you're buying a home that is more than $1 million, then you at least have to pay down 20%. And then they have what's called a mortgage insurance that is required for if you're putting down a 20% less than 20% down. So that is something that you have to consider if you're buying a house in this range. And then when it comes to mortgage tips, I believe there are what's called a fixed rate and a variable rate. Fixed rate is you're going to be locking in your interest rate for a fixed amount for a fixed number of years, whereas a variable rate is um, it changes with the current interest rate. Uh, Based on ChatGPT, if you're going with fixed and the current economy, then you're going to be, on average, you're going to be paying 3.8% in interest. And then if you go variable, then it's going to go 3.9%. And when it comes to deciding whether you'd like to proceed with fixed or variable, then you have to consider your risk tolerance as well as the current Bank of Canada interest rate trends. And then you can also use mortgage brokers like Nesto to compare rates. And then also when it comes to getting your mortgage pre-approval or getting the actual mortgage finalized, I believe ChatGPT mentioned that they check your credit score as well. So here are some ways that ChatGPT suggests on improving your credit score. You want to make sure that you pay your bills on time, and then you have to keep credit card usage under 30% of the credit limit. And then you want to avoid frequent credit checks that can impact your credit score. And then you can monitor your credit report for errors. There were also some incentives that first time home buyers will have from the government. So there's what's called a first-time homebuyer incentive. Again, it's not too clear what that incentive is, but you can do your own research and understanding what that incentive is. And then there's also a RSP homebuyers plan, which lets you withdraw money from your RSP account up to 35K per person for tax-free if you're putting the money towards buying a house for the first time. And then also for Ontario, BC, and PI, there's what's called a land transfer tax rebate. So make sure if you're buying a house in this region that you take advantage of whatever incentive there are. Finally, if you want to assess whether you are ready to buy a house, um, then you have to consider the following factors. I guess this one is if you're buying condo, then you also have to factor in the condo maintenance fees or monthly payment, which amounts to about $150 to $1,000 per month. And then when it comes to just before buying a house, you want to ask yourself if you have enough money. Do you have an emergency fund to take care of at least 3 to 6 months of your living expenses? And then is your income stable, or are you getting paid regularly? And then if you're going with the variable interest rate, then if the Bank of Canada were to raise the interest rate, then it's gonna put more burden on you because now you're going to be facing more interest to pay for each month for your mortgage. Can you handle that risk? And then, do I understand all costs? So if you buy a house, there are other cost factors to consider, whether it is home insurance, maintenance fee, um, and others. So I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you again the conversation that I had with ChatGPT. So here I asked ChatGPT, I want to buy a house in Canada. What do I need to buy a house? What is the procedure to buy a house? What do I need to know before owning a house? And then here is a step-by-step guide that ChatGPT provides. First of all, again, you need the down payment, and then okay. So I think this goes into more detail about that comment. For example, you have to pay 5% down payment for the first 500K, and then if your house price is in between 500K to 1 million, then for that incremental cost that is above 500K, you have to pay 10%, and then you have to put down 20% minimum if your house is a 1 million, if you want to avoid that mortgage insurance that we talked about. And then you want a good credit score, and then we went over how to improve your credit score in the PowerPoint. And then the broker or banks might want to check that you're in a good financial situation to pay down your interest. So you will need a proof of income, that is pay stubs or T4s or tax returns, and then they can also check your debt to income ratio to assess affordability. So the more income, the better. Lower the debt, I guess that is better. And then mortgage pre-approval, show how much you can borrow and lock in a rate for 90 to 120 days, which I think makes sense before you buy a house. Get the mortgage pre-approval so that you are aware of how much money you can borrow from your lender, and then use that towards your decision. Again, at a high level, 10-step guide that we went over. We can get into more details. So checking your budget. So you have to consider your mortgage fee. You're going to be owning a property, so you're going to be paying the property tax, and then you're going to be paying a home insurance, and then you also have to account for your maintenance fee as well as the utilities. And then we went over the getting a pre-approval, and then hire a real estate agent to help you find a property, negotiate, and avoid mistakes. And then avoid mistakes that should be paid by sellers. So I think that's an important remark. And then you can start house hunting. What community, what location do you want to consider your commute to work? Do you have kids? And then are there any schools in your neighborhood? What is the future growth? Are there going to be a public transportation that's going to be built in that area? Are there going to be commercial buildings that are going to be built and then attract more people? And then you gonna make an offer, and then your realtor or your agent will draft a formal offer. And then home inspection, it's optional but recommended to identify any issues before you finalize the deal. Uh, and then you want to secure mortgage approval, and then you want to hire a lawyer to go through the paperwork, land transfer, and whatever. And then you want to close the deal and move in. And then here are some other factors that you want to consider. So when it comes to upfront cost, there's a down payment, and then there's also a closing cost, which ranges between 1.5% to 4% of your purchase price. And this includes the legal fees, land transfer tax, inspection, title insurance, etc. And then there's also ongoing costs that you are going to be facing when you buy a house. And then government incentives. I really encourage you to research what incentive you uh, may be applicable to you in the region that you're trying to buy a house. And then another important decision was fixed versus variable rates. And then what property types are you considering? Are you considering to buy a detached home, semi-detached, townhouse, condo? And then condos have lower prices, but it's going to have a condo fees, as we saw from the PowerPoint, which ranges between $150 to $1,000, and it could be more. And then resale and pre-construction. Pre-construction home may take years and have risks. There could be delays or cost overruns. And then a checklist that we went over. I think we can skip this. And then based on the information that ChatGPT provided, I asked it to provide that PowerPoint that we saw. However, I had some more follow-up questions. So instead of using that PowerPoint, I asked some more follow-up questions, such as what is the average home price in Canada by province and major city. And then I also asked, because I think I saw somewhere that if you're putting down 5% minimum down payment, then there's also going to be additional insurance or cost. So I wanted to specify what it is. And then yeah, how do individuals go about getting mortgage? And then which company currently offers the lowest mortgage? And then how do you improve the credit score? And then, well, it wasn't really super clear on what the first time home buyer incentive is, so I asked it to clarify further. And then, when would individuals consider fixed versus variable mortgage rate? And then I ask if the current economy is ideal for a fixed or a variable rate, and is what is the typical condo fees. So based on that, it provided the information that we went over in the PowerPoint slides, and then yeah, so when it comes to 5% down payment for homes under 500K with 5% down payment, you still need to pay what's called a mortgage default insurance due to your stake being less than 20% of the equity. For example, on a 500K property, you have to at least 25K down triggers insurance. Okay, so 500K property, based on that, 5% of the 500K is going to be 25K down payment, and then that will still trigger insurance, mortgage default insurance, which is going to add at least 2 to 4% being added to your mortgage upfront. And then if you want to avoid that mortgage default insurance, then you want to consider putting down at least 20% down on or purchase price greater than $1 million. So when it comes to getting a mortgage and best rates, there are a number of ways you can do that. So you can apply via banks, credit unions, or brokers. They will need your credit score, income proof, and down payment. And then based on March 2025 data, current average rates for the 5-year fixed rate is 3.84%, and then variable rate is 3.9%. So if you go with variable, it's going to be slightly higher. But um, if the Bank of Canada lowers the interest rate, then going with this may work on your favor. But who knows what's going to happen when it comes to interest rate. And the regional lenders via broker like Nesto offer competitive digital brokerage rates. It's from Wikipedia. Reddit Insight 3 to 5 year fixed offered around 3.99%, and then variable around prime uh, around 4.3%. So fixed rate, it helps you predict it assures you predictable payments, best when you want stability or expect rates to rise. Variable rates starts lower, better if rates fall further, and indeed the BOC is expected to cut rates in 2025. Again, that is not what I say, that is what ChatGPT says, so take it with a grain of salt. With inflation easing and room for more rate cuts, variable options may be attractive, but they can carry if rates reverse. Okay, so it is really up to individuals to assess what what situation you're in and understand the risk of proceeding with whether it is a fixed rate and variable rate, and then decide on your own what works best in your current financial or other considering factors. Improving your credit score, you want to make sure that you pay your bills on time consistently, and then keep credit utilization below 30%. I think less than 30% of the credit limit, I believe. I think that's what this means. And then avoid unnecessary credit inquiries. And then, yeah, first time home buyer incentive. Yeah, so you can read more on this, and then typical condo fees. We went over this. I think this might be worthwhile. So summary table at a glance. Average home price it varies by provinces, but we can think of it somewhere between 300 to 1 million. In a big cities, 500K to 1.5 million. Um, if you're putting down 5% down payment, which is less than 20% down payment, then your mortgage you need to also add in the mortgage insurance, mortgage rates and lenders. So currently 5% 5-year fixed is 6.84%, variable 3.9%, and then you can proceed with the broker like Nesto to compare different rates, fixed versus variable, improving credit score, and whatnot. So based on the previous conversation that we had, I asked ChatGPT to condense the entire conversation we had, and then I'm asking it to be aware that I'm going to be using it towards my YouTube channel, Learn with AI, and with the goal of sharing information when it comes to buying a house for the first time in Canada, and then that we need to know major steps and tips. So I'm just gonna scroll up slowly. I believe this is the repetitive information that we went over, but this time ChatGPT is placing information in where it needs to be and in maybe more of a sequential, readable format. And yeah, so I really like the condensed response ChatGPT provided. So I asked it to make a more of a professional PowerPoint based on the conversation that I had, and then this is the PowerPoint that ChatGPT came up with, and then that is the indeed the PowerPoint slide that I have used in the beginning part of the video. So yeah, so there it is. I hope this information was helpful. Again, this is from ChatGPT. So if you find information that's missing or that is misleading, or if you have better tips when it comes to buying a house, please drop in the comment below. Also, hit the like and subscribe so that you can learn more on various topics with ChatGPT on this learning journey. Thank you, and I wish you have a great day.